Hey, good morning, Thomas.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. If you'd like, you can go ahead and load your presentation just to make
Okay.
sure it loads, test it out.
All right. How do I share here? I haven't done Teams in a while.
On the top right, it says share. Yeah.
I see. All right. Share a window.
Perfect.
All right. I'm going to test. I'm just going to go down to a slide that I've got a little video on. Just make
Yeah.
sure you can hear the audio. It's just one I like to have it on there. It's kind of funny. Can you hear that?
I pulled you over.
Yes, I can.
Okay. Good deal. So that works. I know sometimes it gets quirky with just
Very
videos and
good.
stuff like that. So, well, cool. How many people do we have potentially signed up, or I guess?
I think there could be about like 20 people on here.
Okay. Good
That's what we're
deal.
hoping for at least. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. We appreciate it. How's your week been?
It's been good. I was over at Georgia Tech. There's some training that I did. So it was a good week. I'm in town, which is nice. So
Good. Good.
how about you?
Good. Good
Yeah.
week. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crossover day today at the Capitol. So
Okay.
I do all of our legislative affairs. So that's the last day for the House bills to go to the Senate and the Senate to go to the House. So
Mhm.
little bit busy there, but we're in a good place. So
Okay. Good deal. Yeah, this weather's crazy too. I mean, it's supposed to
I
be like
know.
80 next week, which is going to be awesome. So
Well,
hi, Miranda.
and we're recording this. Is that okay with you? We usually post our
Yeah,
webinars on YouTube, but is that good with you?
yeah, that's fine.
Okay, very good.
I can't
I
figure out
guess I
how
better
to
not
unmute
say.
myself.
You what?
I couldn't figure out how to unmute myself.
No. Yeah.
Hey, Miranda.
Hi.
Hi, hi.
Oh, Emily, I think that I might be still getting emails to our old Horizon. I don't know if I get them forwarded to our new, I guess, branding or whatever, but I don't know if that gets changed or how that gets changed in y'all's system.
Huh. Okay, I'll check.
I think that like the original invite came to that old one.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I'll still get them, but I think when I log in and I try and make that change, I can't, or it does it, but it really doesn't. I don't think it does it like deep down in. I don't know. So
Got it.
Miranda, you're the only one with the camera on.
My hair's too cool not to be on camera.
I know. Let me see the lines.
Good morning, everyone. I hope
Hey,
everyone's
everybody.
doing well. We'll go ahead and get started. First of all, if everyone could please make sure that you're muted. That way we can be respectful of Thomas. I have the privilege of introducing him today as our next speaker for our webinar. Thanks everyone for joining. But Thomas has a BS in Industrial and Systems Engineering from the Georgia Institute of Technology. He has over 27 years of experience servicing the environmental, health, and safety compliance needs of small, medium, and large manufacturing and industrial operations. He has developed and implemented health and safety programs for hundreds of facilities, written policies and procedures, and trained personnel. Thomas is highly skilled at analyzing a facility's current compliance status, making recommendations as to the direction and scope to reach full compliance, and developing and implementing the strategies necessary to work towards and maintain compliance with those programs. Thomas is an OSHA authorized general industry outreach trainer and a MIMSHA approved instructor. Thomas is a former Georgia Tech Yellow Jacket football wide receiver, holds multiple All-American honors in track and field, a one-time NCAA national champion for Georgia Tech track and field, and a member of the Georgia Tech Athletic Hall of Fame. And so he will be signing autographs at the end of this as well. But it's my honor and my privilege to introduce you to Mr. Thomas. Thomas, I'll let you take it from here, bud.
Okay, sounds good. Retired runner, so not doing that anymore. Definitely not. But anyway, yeah. Thank you for having me. Miranda's also in the room. She's helping with this, and we'll actually hopefully try and answer questions if you chat in and all that. But yeah, what we're gonna do is go over OSHA inspection protocols today, and it kind of goes hand in hand with I think the last webinar y'all did. It was regarding stormwater compliance and inspections and how to handle that. So I thought this was a good topic, and it would be interesting for everybody to listen in on that. Let me scroll through here. So here's just today's topics. We'll go in a little bit. I'm with Engineered EHS, Miranda and I are, and basically we're a consulting company. We work with industry and do things like permitting, training, program development, regulatory inspection assistance, all those kinds of things we help clients with. As he mentioned, yeah, I graduated from Georgia Tech, industrial engineering. I don't use that. Immediately got a job doing environmental health and safety out of school, and have been doing it ever since. And I actually had to go back through and think about the years that I've been doing it, and it's 27 years. Doesn't seem that long, but it has been a long time. So got into doing and working with ready mix concrete and cement companies in mines right out of school. So I've seen a lot of different facilities in different states and all that. And then we do a lot with just, general manufacturing. So I've seen a lot of different things. So feel free to use this as a resource if you all need assistance with anything or have questions about things. Really that's it with just kind of general introductions, but we're going to go in. I wanted to talk a little bit about, before we got started, just a regulatory update and upcoming deadlines for you guys potentially. We'll talk about that. Before we go into the inspection protocols, I'm going to talk about current local and national emphasis programs that OSHA has. So these are the things that they've instructed their inspectors to address. So we'll talk about the ones that are active, and then we'll go into priorities for inspections. So who is OSHA targeting? Why are they targeting them? And your chances of being inspected, at some point. So whether you've been through various inspections or you're new to them, hopefully you can take something from this presentation. We'll talk about the inspection process. We'll go, and then after that we'll go into just top violations. So I'll talk a little bit about that. And then where do you prioritize? If you're new to safety and you just got it all dumped on you, how do I start? So a lot of times it can feel like overwhelming, and you don't know where to prioritize. So we'll just maybe give you some tips about what I would do on that, and then go from there. So I get to talking crazy, and a lot of times I can't monitor. I don't know if on here there's like a hand up type thing, but if you wanna, if you have a question, immediate question, you can unmute and ask me. If you type it in, I may not see it, but Miranda might. So, and then if anything, you have my contact info from the invite for this. So feel free to email, me or Miranda, and we'll get you taken care of. So, so with that, just, updates and deadlines. I actually completed this a couple weeks ago. So some of these deadlines have passed, but again, if you see that you haven't done something, no big deal. Just, make sure you get it done. It's better to do it a little bit late than to not do it at all. So, February 1st was the deadline for posting your OSHA injury and illness summaries. So, that's got to be posted somewhere where employees can see it, from February 1st to April 30th. And it's, again, a summary of the injuries for last year needs to be posted somewhere. Again, even if you have 0, you still got to post it. So again, if you have those and they're not up, get them up. If you don't have them, get them filled out and get it put up there. So that's one deadline that's passed already. March 1st was a deadline for Tier 2 reporting. This is an environmental topic. So this is your hazardous materials inventories. So just a reminder to do that. Again, if you haven't done that, it's you're reporting hazardous chemicals on your site over certain quantities, right? So 10,000 pounds is the threshold. So things, like that you may have that, like cement and oils and certain admixes that are considered hazardous. There's a report that has to go out. This is mainly for like emergency response type things. So if someone gets called for an emergency, they know what to expect on the site. March 2nd was the e-filing for your injury and illness records. For smaller companies, it's just from the summary. You're saying how many injuries you had that were resulted in lost time and things like that. All reportable injuries. There's a electronic report that gets submitted. May 15th coming up. This is on the environmental side. You've got your stormwater first quarter discharge monitoring reports. So if you have a stormwater permit, there's some reporting that has to be done on a quarterly basis regarding monitoring your outfalls and all that, and you got to send the results in. Even if you don't have results, you got to send something in that says you didn't monitor, you didn't have to. Coming up Q1 or Q2 stormwater annual monitoring. So under the stormwater permit, you have an annual requirement to take samples, send them to the lab, and get the results back. The permit says you should try and get those done in first quarter, second quarter. So that's kind of coming up. And again, if you get it, you can get those samples out and back. You've got, they want you to do it, try and do it Q1, Q2. And then July 1st is our toxic release inventory, or TRI, or Form R. That's coming up July 1st. Probably doesn't apply to most of the ready mix sites, but potentially it could. Again, this is based on toxic materials that are getting processed. If you have cement plants, you probably have to submit them, or you have some experience submitting them. So again, there's just some deadlines coming up. I like to always just have that and put it out ahead of you. Again, if you haven't done them, again, there's, should get them done. Look at it, at least if you don't know what they are. It's something you definitely want to address going forward. So, all right. So let's get into it. So lockout, or maybe not lockout, local emphasis programs. So these are the, for our area, right? So the Atlanta area, it's made up of Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. So these are the, again, guidance to inspectors, saying, hey, these are things we need to focus on. So it's good to know, what's kind of on their front page for inspections and things like that. So the ones that are active, there's a construction one, federal agencies, poultry processing, safety hazards in the auto parts industry, sanitation, electrical. That's another one that could potentially apply to ready mix sites. This one in particular is about overhead power lines. So OSHA inspectors are directed, if they see that something happening where there could be contact with overhead power lines, they're instructed to stop and visit that site unless they have some other priority that's higher than that. So again, that could be a potential. Even on the job sites where you may be delivering concrete and all that, there could be hazards there. So that's on their emphasis program. Landscaping, noise hazards, that's another one. High noise environments, ready mix, concrete manufacturing facilities are specifically listed in this emphasis program. So that's one that's on the forefront. I'll talk at the end of the presentation a little bit about, again, when I talk about where we can focus, some things that you want to make sure you have in place regarding noise and things like that. Just be prepared. The powered industrial trucks, if you got a forklift in the shop, that's an emphasis on them for companies that have forklifts or powered industrial trucks.
Oh yeah, here he is.
And then the maritime, again, doesn't apply to us. So those are the local emphasis programs that are active. Now we have the national. Okay, so this is, again, all of OSHA, federal OSHA, with a combustible dust emphasis, fall prevention. And that one applies to probably all our sites, where we got employees working at height. Do we have the guardrails? Do we have, those fall hazards, walking, working surfaces, all that? So that's a potential. Hazardous machinery, same thing, guarding. We have equipment, we have nip points, we have those kinds of things. So there's an emphasis on that in manufacturing industries. Heat, so we the hot heat illnesses and injuries, that's an emphasis. So these work environments where it's hot, and potential injuries from overheating and heat exhaustion and things like that is one of their hex chrome. That's another one that's, again, probably may not apply, but if you're in your shop, you're welding stainless, there's a potential for exposure there. So that might apply, maybe not. Lead, probably not so much. Primary metals industries, probably not for us. Process safety management, shipbreaking, silica, that's a big one, right? So, so there's that emphasis on, industries, and we're specifically listed in that one, where there could be a potential for silica exposure. Trenching, excavation, and warehousing. So those are all our active emphasis programs. And then I kind of summarize that these are ones that, as I walk through them, I already kind of said it, but would potentially may apply to, your sites. So, electrical, noise, forklift are all the local. And then falls, amputations, heat related, hex chrome, maybe silica are all the national emphasis programs. So, so moving on. So again, we want to talk about OSHA inspections. And so I like to talk about their inspection authority. So the OSHA Act, of 1970, that authorizes OSHA compliance officers to conduct workplace inspections. So it's written into that act, right? So that gives them authorization to do it. They can conduct inspections without advance notice. They can just show up. Other times you do get notice, and you can make arrangements for that. So, in fact, anyone who tells an employer about an OSHA inspection in advance could potentially receive fines. This was more for like mine sites in MSHA too. A lot of them have like a security guard gate, and what would happen is OSHA would drive up, and that security guard would, tell everybody, and they'd shut everything down so this inspector couldn't see anything and things like that. So, but it's written into the OSHA Act that they can inspect at any time. So why would you get an inspection, right? So OSHA has their priorities, and their first priority is imminent danger. So basically, what that means is that if it could be it's reasonably certain that an immediate danger exists. So I'll use the example of that emphasis program on falls, fall protection. So inspectors, were instructed to stop if they saw a potential for a fall hazard. Why? Because there was imminent danger. You fall from height, you hit the ground, the results aren't good. You're seriously injured or killed from, those kinds of events. And so that's number one on their priority. The other one, electrical, right? I mentioned the overhead power lines. If someone comes in contact with those, there could be a fatality. So that's imminent danger. So that's their first priority for inspections. Their second is fatalities, or catastrophic incidents. So if you have a death at the facility, you've got to report it. You're going to get inspected, right? Almost 100% chance that you're going to be inspected. So that's number two on their list. And I always ask this question: why is imminent danger number one and fatalities two? Well, the answer is, fatalities already happened, right? Imminent danger, they can be stopping one, or if they intervene. So, but again, those are their two top priorities. Then third on their list is complaints or referrals. This, however, is your number one chance of getting inspected, is if there's a complaint. OSHA has to investigate it. So there's a couple ways to make complaints for employees. Again, written into the OSHA Act that employees can complain to OSHA and request that things get fixed. But unfortunately, sometimes it's abused. You have layoffs, or you have an employee that gets fired or whatever it is, and then there's immediate complaints to OSHA. But again, that's why it is your best chance of getting inspected is if there's a complaint called in. OSHA, as you can imagine, they get a lot of these, and so there's different ways. There's different ways to file a complaint. You can do an anonymous complaint, and then you can also put your name to it, right? But they have to investigate them. I've been through actually 4 in the last 2 months where there have been complaints from our clients, or from employees of our clients, and they've all gotten letters that says, hey, there was a complaint about high noise levels. Please explain what you guys are doing, what you have in place, and send us documentation. So you have a chance to respond to it without OSHA coming in onto the site. But again, no one likes to get any action from OSHA, but anyway, so that's the third priority. Fourth is programmed inspections. So these would be inspections that just get programmed in. So like these local emphasis programs, things like that, you get put on their list to get inspected. Again, your chances aren't very good, but they do happen. There could be programmed inspections from high injury rates. There could be again, based on the type of industries, things like that. But that's fourth on their priority list. They have the others that are more of a priority. So, all right. So I guess stages of the inspection. So now let's say we are, have an inspection happening. Again, OSHA's got to follow certain steps as part of that inspection process. So they determine that, hey, they are going out to your facility. So the different stages of the inspection. Step one is they presenting credentials. They got to identify who they are. Opening conference, got to sit down and tell you why they're there. And I'll get into detail a little bit more about this. A walk around, so they will do a walk around inspection, whether it be particularly for like a complaint, they may want to go to a certain area, those kinds of things. But there will be some type of visual walk around that happens. And then a document review. And these could be interchanged. They may review your documents before they walk around. But a document review, your paperwork, they're going to look at that. Employee interviews could be something that's going to happen. And then a closing conference, and then your citations and penalties later on down the road, when the citation package is issued. So those are your general steps for inspections on the OSHA side of things. Again, very similar to environmental, but there may be some added steps here outside of the environmental side. So presenting credentials, right? So they've got to identify who they are. And, I've seen I heard stories about impersonators for OSHA. And actually one that comes to mind is we do a lot of work in Arizona. I grew up in Arizona. There was one point where there was some individual going around to restaurants and saying he was an OSHA inspector. And he knew a couple things. He said he could identify a few things and tell the company that they could, pay him or this amount, but the fines and all that was going to be this amount, right? So, if you were impersonating OSHA inspector, how much would you ask for, right? I think he was asking for $38. It doesn't seem worth it to me to do that. But again, so you want to make sure who these individuals are, and again, obviously somebody could fake it, but but you want to again make sure they show credentials prior to that happening. So again, a little bit of the do's and don'ts about the credentials. Ask to see the inspector's credentials. They expect this. They should do it anyway. You should have a gatekeeper prepared to receive the inspector. Again, you have an inspector that can just walk in and walk around, without, having someone with them. You want to have a gatekeeper, at least, hey, if you're on site, you've got to check in with the office, or whatever it may be. So that's something to do, and make sure that you do. You can seat them in a conference room, lobby, and then contact the appropriate people. Again, not everybody is, knowledgeable about all the things safety related and the paperwork and all that. So get that person ready, and call those individuals. Some things that you don't want to do. You don't want to refuse an inspector. You're allowed to under your rights. You can say no, but it's not advisable. So the inspector will leave and get a warrant from there. And apparently it's a really easy warrant to get. And when they come back, they may come back with additional inspectors, and what, their original scope may be longer. Again, the environment that they're in, it's going to be probably negative. So again, not a good idea to refuse an inspector. So anyway, that's a big point. You don't want to delay the inspector for too long, right? So how much is too long? It's like, you put them in a conference room and leave them in there for an hour or 2 hours. That's not good. But again, don't delay them too long. And, but anyway, those are just some basic things that we've found that you do and don't want to do. So then the opening conference, right? So we've welcomed that inspector. We've got them together in a room or a conference room or somewhere where we can talk. This is where they explain how that establishment was selected. So they may be, there because of a programmed inspection. So they'll tell you why. Hey, I'm here because of a, noise. We suspect that you have high noise levels based on this local emphasis or national emphasis program. I'm going to be inspecting that. Or I'm here because to investigate a complaint and here's the reason why that complaint happened and this and that. So they'll explain that to you as part of it. They should be aware of whether your company is part of a consultation program. Again, here in Georgia, you have a consultation program through Georgia Tech, or if you have any kind of certification, SHARP certifications, things like that. Then they'll discuss the purpose of the visit. They'll provide instructions. Give you a copy of the standards, some general information about the inspection process and things like that. They'll talk about employee representative designation. So again, if you have part of a unionized company, things like that, they'll explain that process, and then they'll talk about what they want to do. They'll say, hey, we're going to walk around, or I want to look at paperwork, things like that. So that should all be done, or would all be done as part of the opening conference. Some do's and don'ts of that opening conference. You want to make a good impression, right? So try and make a good impression. Stress your continuing commitment to safety. This is all, it's your chance to do that. And, you don't want to make a bad impression. Don't start off with a negative attitude with the inspector. So again, just some advice for doing that. And then we'll go into a walk around. So usually at this stage, they'll, walk the property, or walk where they want to, what they want to look at, right? So work areas will be inspected for hazards, and that compliance officer determines the route and duration of the inspection. They may take photos, videos, things like that. Again, if there are, areas that, you may have policies in place about photos, videos, that you'll have to discuss it with that inspector. They may take interviews, or may be doing interviews with employees as they're doing the walk around. There may be monitoring that happens, and we'll talk about it a little bit afterward when I talk about silica and noise. If an inspector comes in to do noise monitoring or air monitoring, they're going to be there all day. So those activities may happen. So that's all part of the walk around. So again, their purpose of the walk around is to identify any non-compliance. So again, these are just general photos here. You have, electrical panels blocked. You have, improper use of extension cords, walking working surface issues, plugs, all those kinds of things. They could be identified by the inspector. Their head is going to be on a swivel, so they're going to be looking for things as they do that inspection. So that's all part of the walk around. And again, it's just an general type industrial facility. They walk around. You can see there's lots of hazards that are there that could all be potential violations. You got cords across walkways. You have hot work happening. Doesn't look like there's a permit. You have people using drills and machine guarding issues. So all that are open game once that inspector walks around. So so just some do's and don'ts, or some do's for your walk around. You want to make sure that everybody's wearing their personal protective equipment. So if your site requires safety glasses and earplugs, make sure everybody in your party is wearing those things, even the inspector. You want to try and keep the same person with that inspector throughout that whole duration of the visit. Why? Well, because if you keep switching people, one individual may have a different opinion or different, answer to something. So you want to try and keep consistency. Again, not a requirement, but it's something that, it's a good practice to do that. You don't want to put any questions into the inspector's mind about maybe why this is inconsistent and things like that. So try and keep the same person with that individual the whole time. Especially I mentioned, monitoring. If they're there 8 hours and they're checking their air monitors every hour or so and walking through the facility, or through the plant, those kinds of things, you want to have somebody with them the whole time. So you want to ensure that employees know to be honest. And, again, inspectors can sniff out a lie. So so be honest about, what's going on there. Take thorough notes. You want to document everything. That inspector stops and spends some time in front of one of the conveyors or the crusher or whatever it may be. You want to make sure you document that. Write that down. Again, better to write out more notes than too little. So document everything. That inspector takes a photo, you take a photo, and so take that same photo. If you can correct items, that we have a non-compliance item or they mentioned something, correct it right there. It may be a case where you still may get cited for it, but again, if you abated it or you fixed it immediately, that's always a good thing. So so make sure you do that. So those are some do's that you want to do as part of this walk around. Some don'ts. You don't want to take that inspector places he or she is not there to see, right? Again, they will determine what the route is and what they want to see. But let's just say they want to go see the shop. Doesn't mean we have to wind through everything to get to the shop. We want to take a direct route to the shop. Again, with that said, doesn't mean we want to go around the outside of the whole facility and make it obvious that we don't want him to see certain things. But so again, don't take them places where they're not supposed to, or they don't want to go. Don't be afraid to call a timeout. So if you are not the person to talk to about a certain process or what's going on, you can call a timeout and say you need to get an individual that knows. Again, if you're kind of guessing or making estimates, that's not good. You want to get those that know what that process is, because again, it could be perceived as deception if you have different answers from people. So so don't be afraid to call timeout if you have to. Don't leave the inspector alone. Again, if they're alone, they're gonna find things, and you want to just make sure you have somebody with that individual the whole time. This is a hard one. Don't volunteer information, right? Uncomfortable silence is good. We tend to want to fill like silence with talk, right? So it's so don't give them too much. It's better to just answer their question directly, and then that's it. Let silence happen. Okay. There's a quick video here.
You know why I pulled you over? Depends on how long you were following me. Eesh. Why don't we just take it from the top? Here goes. I sped. I followed too closely. I ran a stop sign. I almost hit a Chevy. I sped some more. I failed to yield at a crosswalk. I changed lanes in the intersection. I changed lanes without signaling while running a red light and speeding. Is that all? No. I have unpaid parking tickets. Be gentle.
So anyway, don't volunteer information. Again, making estimates. You don't want to try and get those individuals there that know about that process or whatever's going on. And don't be afraid to disagree. You can disagree nicely if they have the wrong picture of what's going on. It's okay to disagree and say, no, this is really what's going on, or whatever it may be. So, but there's ways to do it nicely. You don't want to, again, create a negative environment. So, again, this is a place where we want to speak up if they've got the wrong idea of what's going on. So, so that's a walkthrough. The other portion of, inspections is document review. Okay, so typically when OSHA comes in, one of the first things they're going to want to look at is your OSHA, your injury and illness records, right? So they'll want to look at that to see if you have any, history of injuries or like a trend of injuries in certain areas and things like that. So these logs you got to have records from the past 5 years. So you want to make sure you do have those. And you want to be able to provide them for those inspectors. Again, there's some within the rules. You have 4 hours technically to get them to them. But again, if you have them right there before that inspector is even asking for them, even better. but it's but have those records. They may want to look at safety programs. They want to look at monitoring records, training records, all those kinds of things. Same thing with this is you want to, if they don't ask for it, don't give it to them. And so, if they say, hey, let me see your safety program. Well, my safety program files are this big. Do you have a specific program you want to look at? Again, you want to try and limit, what they see, because, anybody can find anything in anything. It's so you want to make sure you do that as part of the dues, right? So, but do develop your plans. You want to have those developed. Have those plans specific to the site. So, nothing worse than getting a plan to them and it says insert company name here, or you got to dust it off or unwrap it from the plastic wrapping that it's in. So get site specific plans developed, and have them organized and available. Again, it's nothing better. You have an inspection before that inspector even says it, you almost have it ready to give to them. Again, it makes it look good. If you don't have everything developed, like heat stress, and I'll talk about it a little bit later, this heat injury and illness regulation and all that, you should have a plan for that. Many companies, because it's new, they don't have like a written formal plan on what they do for employees that are exposed to higher heat levels and all that. If you don't have one yet, have it planned out. That, hey, we're going to develop this next month, or that you can see in the picture there, that's a calendar that we provide for our clients. It's like, get a plan going. Again, a lot of times if you don't have it done immediately, or maybe it's in process, but you have a plan going forward, it shows that you're organized. Some don'ts, again, I mentioned, don't have insert company name here. Don't try and throw together plans during the inspection, and again, they're not gonna, they'll see right through that kind of thing. Don't forge training documents, and all things that the inspectors aren't dumb, and it's things that they'll be able to, they're gonna probably sniff out pretty easily. And then again, back to, don't give the inspector all your records if they don't specifically ask for them. Again, just stick to it. It's tough not to do this, but stick to what they ask for. If they want more, then you can provide them with more. So, but again, all best practices for the document review part. Same thing with, I mentioned with complaints. Again, they say, hey, we have complaints about noise, this and that, high work environment, or high noise levels during these types of activities. Please provide us with, records. Again, you want to make sure, hey, let's just provide them with your hearing conservation program or your noise monitoring results, something like that, rather than every single program out there. So limit them to what they can view. So yeah, again, that's our walkthrough, our document review, major parts. Again, I've been in inspections where these have taken 5 minutes because that inspector wanted to get out of there quickly. I've been in others where it's been all day, multiple days, things like that. It can be just depends on what you got going on at the facility. So closing conference. So after all this is done, there's a sit down with the inspection or with the inspector. This is where they'll provide you with a copy of the employer rights and responsibilities. Again, it's a general document. Discuss apparent unsafe conditions observed during the visit. Specific penalties will not be discussed in this meeting. So if they do, talk about monetary, money amounts and all that kind of stuff, something's up. This is not where this happens. But again, you can discuss that walkthrough and what any apparent unsafe conditions that they identified, and you can ask questions here, and things like that, and then they'll go over your appeal rights in the process going forward in this closing meeting. Again, do some do's, discuss apparent violations, ensure that inspector notes items that have been abated. So again, if he says I saw this out there. Oh, we had that addressed. You saw it addressed and all that. Just make sure that they do note that, things were addressed or abated immediately. And here you can provide any records that would assist with a compliance determination. So if he's talking about an apparent violation and you have records that show that, hey, we've got something for that, then, you can provide that to him here in this closing meeting. And again, don't be afraid to discuss the apparent violations. And that way you have, an idea where his head's at or where that inspector's head's at on a lot of these items and what's going on there. So stay classy. So then it could be some time. There could be some time that passes before you get any kind of word back. So the inspector's left. You don't hear from him for a month, 2 months, 3 months. They have up to 6 months to get back to you with the citation package and things like that. So it could be a long time. And I've been finding that more and more they're getting right at that 6-month period. So, but when you do receive a citation package and notification of penalty, there's a requirement at the end of it that you've got to post it. So you've got to post it for 3 working days or until the violations are corrected. So, so you want to make sure you do that and get it posted. Once you get that citation package and before you decide to contest or pay the fines or agree to, all that, you have a chance for what's called an informal conference from OSHA. So before filing the notice to contest, you may request this informal conference. So you go in and you actually speak with the area director about the violations. And part of this process, you can get a better explanation of the violations, a more complete understanding of specific standards. You can even negotiate and enter in what's called an informal settlement. You can discuss ways to address certain items. You can talk about proposed penalties, abatement dates, right? So in the citation package, it says, hey, you have to have this fixed by, let's just say there was a noise monitoring issue, and employees hadn't been trained. Well, then you have up until a certain date that they give you to abate or get those individuals trained. So you can talk about those dates. You can resolve disputed citations, or you can get answers to any of your questions as part of this informal conference. My recommendation, I've been through a lot of these, always call for the informal conference. Even if you're willing to pay the citation, you agree with all that stuff, call for that informal conference. Again, it gives you a chance to sit down with them and talk to them, and it shows that you're invested in it, and it shows that you want to comply to make that the environment safer for your employees. I've been into these meetings where they've knocked off, and this doesn't happen as much as it did before, but they'll cut some of those proposed penalties down. I've had it where they've actually reduced those by 70% for a client just by showing up and talking about them. So, so again, that's a recommendation by us, is to call for this informal conference. So again, you're not contesting by going there. You're not saying that you're contesting any of the violations. You're just going to talk about them and discuss them. So you want to request that informal conference, even if you agree to pay. And then he also immediately, once you get the package, start working on your abatement plan of action. Do that right after that employee or that inspector leaves also. And one thing is that if you are going to request an informal conference, you need to do it within 15 days, because you have 15 days to contest certain violations. So you need to get on that right away to request that time to go in and speak with them. So we're talking about citations. So citation amounts, right? So these have crept up to catch up with inflation. So currently, serious violations. So these would be violations that could result like in a serious injury. And then other than serious and all that, $16,550. is the potential for the violation or the citation amount or penalty. In an instance where it's a failure to abate, that means we didn't fix it, right? They identified it, you didn't fix it. 16,550 per day. And then a willful or a repeat violation. So that means they come in before, you've been cited for that before, or willful is something everyone should know. And they get you for a willful violation, 165,514 per violation. So pretty big money. Before it used to be that, a lot of OSHA citations were like a slap on the wrist. But now, I mean, those amounts have gotten up there. So this is just a sheet from a facility up in Gainesville where they had some big issues. Not a ready mix site, but this just shows you it's kind of new. It's from 2021. They add up. They had citations. This is actually Foundation Foods, so they have the refrigeration. Poultry processing type operation, refrigeration, and they had a leak of their liquid nitrogen, and 6 people died from that. Well, OSHA eventually came in and got them, for not having emergency response plans, hazard communication, even lockout tagout, all those. And you can see that, their willful violations are 136,000 per violation. So those add up. So just an example. So agree or contest, that's the question. So you can, if you agree with your, the citation package and the citations and all that, you must correct those conditions by the set date and pay the penalty. If you don't agree, you have 15 working days from the date you receive the citation to contest it in writing. So again, once that 15 days passes, it becomes a final order and you got to pay it. So all right, so those are our basic steps, and we got like about 15 minutes left. So I wanted to talk just a little bit about kind of maybe where we can focus. Every year OSHA comes out with their top 10 violations, right? That in industry, and so OSHA's top 10. This is from 2023. Number 1 is fall protection, right? It's an emphasis program that could affect each of your sites. But it's one of the top violated for that year. It always is. Hazard communication, right? Having SDS sheets, knowing about the chemicals, having labeling correctly, those kinds of things. Ladders, so walking working surfaces is number 3 on their list. We all have ladders on our sites, right? Fixed ladders, ones that we move around, those kinds of things. Scaffolding is number 4. Powered industrial trucks is 5. Lockout tagout is number 6 on their list. Respiratory protection, fall protection training is on it. So falls get on there twice. And then personal protective equipment is listed as number 9, and then 10 is guarding. So all these are potential issues that we have on our sites. And every year, it's always the same ones. I think electrical sometimes ends up on here, but they all just change order. But we always have our top 10. They're usually pretty consistent. So it helps to know that. So, even some of the things that maybe we take for granted and things like that, I mean, if they're always in that top 10, let's start addressing them. This actually is, and it's a little bit small. I'll get a bigger one on there, but OSHA's website is really good. I don't know if any of y'all have looked at it, but there's a lot of data on there that you can use. So what I did is I looked for OSHA's most frequently cited standards for your industry. So for the ready mix industry. So I typed in the NAICS code and pulled it up, and you can see that their top violation based on citations. So there were 18 citations for hazard communication in 35 inspections, and the total penalty amount was $465,000. So you can just see, and I'll flip to the next one. It's a little bit bigger. So I took that same table and just put it here. So HAZCOM was number 1 for number of citations. Number 2 was lockout tagout. 3, electrical, so general. 4 was silica. So they're citing individual or companies for that. So if you can look, at the total penalties, what I did is that last column, I just averaged it out per citation. So I took that total penalties and divided it by the number of citations that they wrote. And there you can see like an average citation amount for each. So the highest one on here, it looks like there's one for, well, it's $16,000, but they only had one citation for it. But then the next highest looks like it's $8,000 for emergency action plans per citation. So exit routes and, you know, what you got going on as far as evacuations and things like that. That's a high one. Lockout tagout, about $6,000 per violation, right? So makes sense. Those are all technically serious violations. So the amount on those is going to be higher. So again, great thing to use and look at. You know, if you think about, hey, where do I want to prioritize? You know, I want to prioritize my efforts. So where can I focus? You know, focus on those local emphasis programs and those national emphasis programs, right? We know noise is one of them, right? So under the local. So, you know, what can we do to, you know, to make sure, let's say we, you know, after this, you realize, you know, we really don't have much going on as far as noise, you know, our program for noise and what we're doing. You know, do you have a noise survey? Do you even know what the, you know, the levels are around your plant? Have you done noise monitoring, right? So, you know, whether it be spot testing or have you done, you know, put dosimeters on employees? If you have multiple sites, have we done that for all of our sites? Have we done it for, you know, maybe a representative sample of, you know, certain sites? But have a schedule to do it. You know, we've done a lot of this stuff for both silica, air testing, and noise monitoring for sites. And we've had sites that say, well, I can't do them all. It's just not feasible, you know, from a money standpoint and all that. We'll say, well, let's start doing a representative sample. Have it scheduled out that maybe you do one site a year or one site a month, whatever it is. But to have that on hand is important. Let's say we do one and you do the worst case one that you think is the noisiest. You know, that, you know, having that, and let's say you get inspected at another one of your sites that maybe hasn't had noise monitoring yet. Well, then you can go back on that one and say, hey, we have similar operations. You know, we're just assuming, you know, this from that. I mean, it helps. So it's so doing that noise monitoring under that program, having the program written, a written policy is important. Personal protective equipment, audiometric testing possibly. So all that goes into your noise program. Falls, you know, what can we do? Well, maybe do focused walkthroughs, you know, up your walking working surface, see if your railings are in place, see if we have potential for falls. If you have fall protection equipment, you know, making sure that those are good, having our employees trained. So that's, you know, a way to focus on that a little bit. The national emphasis on amputations, guarding. And you guys are in industry, we've got moving parts, our conveyors and things like that. So doing a guarding assessment or a focused walkthrough on guarding, you know, could be a way to go. What are we doing for lockout tagout? Do we have machine specific procedures? Are we doing our reviews, our periodic inspections of those procedures? Things like that. Are our employees trained? And then on the heat related injury and illness side of it, you know, do we have a written policy? Do we have, you know, what we're doing? Again, your guys are working outside. It's not in the summer months, it's hot. And, you know, do we have stations where they can take breaks and get a drink? You know, again, you just want to identify what it is we're doing to address these issues as part of that program. And again, I know it's a newer thing to have those, but it's one that can be developed. X-chrome, air testing, silica side, same thing like with your noise. You know, have we done a survey? Have we done monitoring? You know, have we just done one site or all the sites? And do we have a plan to address it? So, so that's one way you can do it. Go and, you know, hey, let's focus on the things that are part of these emphasis programs. You know, you can look at OSHA's top 10, or you can look at, you know, top violations in our industry. So the top violations in ready mix industries was HAZCOM, lockout, electrical, and silica. So if we look at those and make sure that we've got those plans and things straight, you know, that's a good way to, you know, prioritize and start addressing these things. You know, have we had employee complaints or concerns about things? You know, the last I mentioned before, the last complaints that I had at a facility that we had to address, there had been employees that were grumbling about certain things for a while, and so some of those weren't surprises. So you know, things like that you want to make sure you address. A lot of times, even you know, getting employees the knowledge that they have in addressing certain things. Again, you have somebody complain about noise levels at a facility, and you say, well, no, here we've done testing, we're below the PEL, whatever it is. A lot of times that communication goes a long way. But again, all places and ways that we can focus if we want to focus on certain areas and figure out a plan. Put it in a calendar, you know, throughout the year. Plan out your next year. So all ways to do it. I went through and I actually just spoke to some inspectors that I've been in contact with, and I put together the top 10 pet peeves of inspectors. And so these are just kind of interesting as to how some facilities will treat inspectors. So these are both environmental and safety. So number one, don't make me wait. It just tells me you're not ready. Nothing you can do at the last minute is going to make much difference anyway. Number two, don't try and block my line of sight by bringing a bunch of employees along on a walkthrough, right? So that smoke and mirrors thing. And it says, I'll wait until I get what I want to see. Three, don't discourage employees from talking to me. I'll talk to them one way or another. Don't lie to me. I can smell a lie. Don't not acknowledge me because I'm a female. I actually had this from one of the inspectors. And it was, you know, out in the boonies somewhere, and they were very disrespectful. So don't do that. Don't touch me. Don't get angry when an apparent violation is discussed. So it's an i.e. punch my truck. Don't spray me with dust control water or the dust control water truck. What are you thinking? So this inspector, they had, you know, they would, you know, spray their, you know, dirt roads and haul roads and things like that. And the employee went close and sprayed them. Don't forge documents. Most of the time, it's very easy to spot a forged document. And then don't set an appointment with me and then not show up, especially if your facility is out in the middle of nowhere. So again, just some top tens from inspectors, from the Office of Inspectors, and it just kind of goes and shows you some of the things that have happened. So with that, that kind of concludes, I guess, the program here. But if y'all want to chime in with some questions and things like that, I'd be happy to answer them. I've got some time, so if you want to talk a little bit, but other than that, that's all I got for you. Anyone? Miranda, did we get any texts in or anything? Chat questions? No, I don't see any.
No, we didn't get any questions or
Okay.
anything coming through the chat.
Good deal.
Thomas?
Yep.
What do you see coming down the pipeline as far as, and I know we kind of touched on it in our safety conference, but you know, from a different, I guess, a perspective, what do you see coming from the OSHA, I guess the office of OSHA with the new administrative? I mean,
You know, I really see, so like, you know, they put a freeze on all the new stuff that isn't effective yet. So, you know, even like the heat stress thing, that's kind of on hold, but some states have already implemented it, but it's just pending review and all that. But then also, you know, those are existing standards and all that, that's going to get enforced. Like, that's not going away. In fact, that, you know, from what I've heard is that even enforcement is still going to go strong. You know, I know there've been a little bit of talk about, you know, them cutting employees and all that, even on the OSHA side. But, you know, our OSHA inspectors, there's like about a little over 2,000 in the whole country, and it isn't a lot anyway. You know, so, but I as far as, you know, noticing it from a frequency of inspections and things like that, I don't think it's gonna be noticeable to us. And again, they're gonna still be enforcing all the existing regulations. So
Thank you. I think John, I think he typed in a chat, I think.
That is correct.
Let's see, activity.
Just curious if anyone had any OSHA activity, last year that they'd just like to share with a group.
So everybody was OSHA free in 24.
And that's great. That's great.
That's great news. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. We did it.
I've
Wayne
been-
Davis we had an incident in 23 in December of 23, and it was really an eye opener for our company and as well as me from a safety standpoint as far as where could we improve. And so, we took it as a learning tool and not necessarily an enforcement tool, because there were a lot of things that we thought we were doing right when in fact we wasn't doing them right. And so I think, from what Thomas has kind of initiated here as far as the pet peeves, our attorney, kind of hit on some of those points, but I think it's all around. I think knowing that they're real people just like you and doing a job, I think that gets further than anything that we can do from an industry standpoint and from a company standpoint, is just working with them and not against them. I don't know if anyone else has had that kind of experience, but
Yeah, I was gonna say, in 2024, we had two like side-by-side jobs that we did where OSHA came in and did the silica testing. And then we had one other one where they came in and did noise monitoring. And both of these facilities that had already done it, but they wanted us to go in and do it at the same time that the inspector was there. But those are the only two as far as those kinds of inspections where we've been side by side with them. So
any other questions, comments? Well, I don't want to hold us no longer than intended. Thomas, you've done an excellent job of getting us done at 12 o'clock, like the time said. I think you practiced that more than once. So, but I do appreciate your time. I appreciate the effort put behind this presentation. I appreciate everyone else for joining, and be on the lookout for our next webinar. Hopefully, will be in April. And until then, I hope everyone stays safe and hope to see you around.